Welcome to our last video on supporting connective tissue. In the last video, I went over landmarks. And the reason I went over the landmarks is I'll be talking about them in the next two chapters in a lot of detail. So I want you to have an idea of why they're important and what they are. So on the test, I care about just what they do right now for these landmarks. So what are landmarks that attach muscles and ligaments? Well, we have the paired rounded ones. That was called an epicondyle. Remember, epi is on top of. So these are always going to be next to a condyle. So these are the condyles. The epicondyle would be next to it. What else do we have? We have crests. The only crest we have is the iliac crest. You could feel it on your hip bone. So, like bears and some marine mammals have awesome sagittal crests on their skulls, though. What are other articulating landmarks or muscle attachment? Processes. We're going to get lots of processes. We're going to get styloid processes of the temporal bone. We're going to get the big, giant mastoid process of the temporal bone. I guess that's how it goes. So, processes stick out of bones. There's a lot of them we have to learn in the next few chapters. What else was there? There was a ramus. And a ramus is just a straight section of a bone. It actually means a branch. We'll see ramuses when we get to the nervous system too. And there was the three amigos. Do you remember what those are? Trochanters, tubercles, and tuberosities. So the trochanters are the big ones only on the femur. Tuberosities are medium. You have a couple nice ones on the humerus. And then tubercles are the smallest one. The articulating landmarks, that's any time two bones come together. So we have the tibia right there. We have the femur right here. I'm not drawing it very well. And they have these paired landmarks on it. What was that called? Condyles. And remember, epicondyles would be on the side of a condyle. What would a single, large, rounded projection be on an epiphysis? That would be a head. And what was the last one? That would be a facet, which is sort of like a little divot. Oops, it's not supposed to be on. So what landmarks were holes? Foramen. I swear the skull has 5,000 foramen. We're only going to learn the first 1,000 of them. We have, what else? Canals. What was the difference? It sounds better to say canal for some structures. And what was the third one? A fissure. So, we're going to look at fractures. And we'll explain the steps in fracture repair. So, a fracture is a break. Now, I like some of these. I don't like some of these. This right here is a transverse fracture. This is a transverse fracture. It is going along the longitudinal axis, and it makes a transverse plane. It's a very nice name for a fracture. My children have gotten transverse fractures on their radii. So far, we have 4 radiuses between them and have broken 3 of them. Now, oblique fracture is at an angle. Now, the spiral one's hard. Unfortunately, it's on this page because it was with the picture and I didn't want to change the picture. A spiral fracture basically does a spiral along the bone. Instead of a nice, clean, directional break like that, or like that, or like that, it is going to sort of twist around the bone. Now, a compound fracture, I've never seen open fracture before the book, is a fracture right here. See how it's broken the skin? Ow, the bone is clean off. So the bone ruptures the skin. One of my students worked in the ER, and they apparently had a collection there of all the compound fractures from motorcycle riders and bicycle riders. So, a green stick fracture. This is a weird one. So see how it's sort of bent there? sort of like bending a branch. I'm avoiding doing gardening work right now. It's nice and cool where I'm recording this, and it's 3 billion degrees Kelvin outside. So see how it's bending? The stick is going to fracture like that. So this would be a green stick. You have a concave, goes concave on one side, and it's like breaking a stick, this part goes off. A commuted fracture, it's splintering in several pieces but does not break the skin. Compound, it breaks the skin. There's all sorts of compound fracture videos online too, by the way. And then the one that bugs me, this is a linear fracture. It's not sagittal, it's linear because it's along the parallel axis. So, those are the 7 types of fracture: transverse, oblique, spiral, compound, green stick, commuted, and linear. I'm going to ask you 1, maybe 2 of those on the test. So, we have a fracture. Oh no, what kind of fracture is that, by the way? That'd be transverse. So, what's going to happen? Well, first, a clot is formed. So we have a clot, a hematoma. Bone, yes, red on red works, I know. Bone has lots of blood vessels. Guess what holes they go through? That's right, foramen. And they are going to bleed when you rupture a bone, so you get a clot. I have actually heard, I'm not sustaining this, but I've heard that people have died from a broken femur. I'm not sure if it's the femur break or if the femoral artery gets broken because of the femur, but I've heard that. And what you get is fibrocartilage forming a callus. Not hyaline, that is our guess for most cartilages. It's fibro. Remember fibrocartilage, we had the nice lacuna with the chondrocytes in it, but then you had dense regular connective tissue with it. The reason for this is it's a stronger cartilage than hyaline cartilage. So it's combining dense regular and dense irregular. Then blood vessels invade. Remember, cartilage is avascular. So blood vessels invade, and they bring with them osteoblasts. What do osteoblasts do? It builds, and what kind of bone is that? Spongy or compact? It builds a hard callus or it builds a callus of spongy bone. And then finally, the bone is remodeled. What 2 cells are going to do the remodeling? Blasts and clasts. Which one destroys? The clast. And we have our remodeled bone. So this question on the test is usually, what is the sequence of bone fracture repair? 1, 2, 3, 4. Sometimes I ask what kind of cartilage forms it, what bone comes first, spongy or compact, but usually it's a sequencing. However, I've not written this part of the test yet. So that is our last video for this lecture. This is our last lecture for the first exam. The first exam will be on chapters 1, language of anatomy, 2, the cell. Chapter 4 is tissue. Chapter 5 is the integumentary system, and chapter 6 is supporting connective tissues. Thank you. Have a good day.